He sat alone in the observation deck of the orbital station Cirrus, watching the curve of Earth glow blue beneath him. The station was quiet at this hour. Only the soft hum of machines and distant footsteps broke the silence. Adrian preferred it this way. Fewer people meant fewer questions. A small holoscreen floated in front of him, tuned to the live broadcast from the Galactic Senate. The chamber looked the same as it always did. Wide, circular, filled with rows of floating platforms, each holding representatives from hundreds of worlds. Bright lights reflected off polished metal and crystal skin, fur, scales, and forms Adrian could barely describe. He had watched many Senate sessions before. Most were boring. Long speeches, slow votes, and careful words that meant nothing. This one felt different. The air in the chamber was tense. Adrian could sense it even through the screen. He leaned forward as the presiding speaker rose from their platform. The translator lagged for half a second, then caught up. "The motion has been finalized," the speaker said. "The vote is complete." Adrian's fingers tightened around the edge of the console. He already knew what was coming. Earth had been warned. Quiet signals had stopped arriving weeks ago. Trade shipments were delayed, then canceled. Friendly messages turned cold. Something had shifted in the galaxy and humanity was on the wrong side of it. Still, hearing it out loud was different. By majority decision, the speaker continued, the Galactic Senate imposes full economic and diplomatic sanctions on the planet designated Sol 3, commonly known as Earth. For a moment, Adrian felt nothing. Then his chest tightened. The words rolled on, listing restrictions. No interstellar trade, no shared research, no access to jump gates controlled by Senate space. Earth vessels would be denied docking rights. Communication relays would be restricted. Earth was being cut off. In the Senate chamber, some representatives nodded with calm approval. Others watched in silence. A few looked uneasy, but none spoke. Adrian glanced around the empty deck, half expecting someone to be there with him. No one was. Just him, the planet below, and a decision made light years away. The broadcast shifted to applause. Not loud, but polite. Controlled. Civilized. Adrian let out a slow breath. So that's it, he murmured. He should have felt angry, or afraid, or shocked. Instead, he felt curious, because something about the vote bothered him. Adrian was not a soldier or a politician. He was a data analyst. His job was to watch patterns, to notice small things others ignored. He had spent years studying Senate procedures, trade laws, and communication protocols. Most of it was dull, some of it was ancient. And ancient systems often hid strange rules. As the applause faded, Adrian rewound the recording. He slowed it down, watching the vote tally appear again. Symbols flashed beside each world's name: green for yes, red for no, yellow for abstain. The numbers were clear. The motion had passed. Yet Adrian's eyes stayed on the fine print at the bottom of the display. There. A short line of text appeared for less than a second, buried beneath the tally. It was written in Old Standard, an early Senate language rarely used anymore. Adrian frowned. He replayed it again, zooming in. The text read like a footnote, a reference code. Most viewers would never notice it. Adrian did. He pulled up the Senate Charter, an enormous archive of laws layered over thousands of years. The system groaned as it searched. "Come on," he whispered. The archive returned a match. The reference code linked to a clause Adrian had only seen once before, during a late-night review session years ago. At the time, he had dismissed it as outdated. Now his heart began to race. The clause dated back to the founding era of the Senate, when space travel was new and many member worlds feared extinction. It outlined conditions under which sanctions could be challenged. Adrian read the words slowly. If a member world was sanctioned in a way that threatened its long-term survival, and if those sanctions were passed without unanimous consent, then the sanctioned world had the right to invoke a formal review. That alone was interesting, but the next line made his breath catch. If the Senate failed to follow proper procedure during such a vote, the authority of the sanction could be considered void until reviewed by an emergency assembly. Adrian sat back, eyes wide. "Proper procedure," he repeated. He pulled up the procedural logs from the vote. Most were locked to public access, but Adrian had clearance. He always did. The system hesitated, then opened the files. He scanned timestamps, speaker rotations, quorum confirmations. Then he saw it. One delegation had been absent, not abstained. Absent. A minor world on the edge of Senate space, rarely involved in major decisions. Their platform had been empty when the vote was called. Under modern rules, absence did not matter. Under founding era law, it did. Adrian's pulse pounded in his ears. The Senate had voted too fast, too confident. They had followed updated rules, not the old ones still buried in their own charter. They had made a mistake. Adrian looked back at Earth below him. Clouds drifted over oceans. City lights glimmered along the dark side of the planet. It looked peaceful, unaware. The galaxy had just turned its back on this world, and in doing so, it might have handed Earth a weapon, not a fleet, not a bomb. A rule. He opened a secure channel and began typing a report. His hands shook, but his mind was clear. To the Strategic Council Priority Level 1 subject, Senate sanctions, vote procedural, irregularity. He laid out the facts in simple terms. The clause, the absence, the possible violation. He ended with a single sentence. Earth may have legal grounds to challenge the authority of the sanctions. He hesitated before sending it. Outside the viewport, Earth continued its slow spin. Adrian wondered how many people down there would panic when the news broke. How many would call this the end? He sent the message. Almost immediately, the channel confirmed receipt. Adrian leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the galaxy, Senate members were celebrating. They believed they had punished a troublesome world. They believed Earth would struggle, beg, or break. Did not know that one quiet analyst had noticed a line of forgotten text. They did not know that their perfect vote was flawed. And they did not know what Earth would do once it realized the Senate's power rested on laws it no longer remembered. The holoscreen flickered. A new alert appeared marked restricted. Incoming message. Source masked. Adrian's stomach tightened. He accepted the transmission. The screen filled with static, then a short line of text appeared. Stop looking. Adrian's blood ran cold. The message vanished as quickly as it came. He sat frozen, staring at the empty air where the words had been. Someone else knew. Someone was watching. And Earth had just taken its first step into a much larger fight. Mara Vance had never imagined she would be summoned in the middle of the night to a secure conference room orbiting Earth. The call had come without explanation. No details, no names, just an urgent request and coordinates. She had been a legal historian for decades, studying the oldest documents of the Galactic Senate, dusty archives that few cared to read. Most people thought the past was irrelevant. Mara knew better. The past could change everything. The conference room was small and stark. Only a long table, a few chairs, and a large holoscreen that lit the room with soft blue light. Mara's arrival was met by Admiral Elias Trent, a tall man with white hair and a serious expression. He motioned for her to sit. Dr. Vance, he said, thank you for coming on such short notice. Mara nodded. Admiral, you didn't give me much to go on. Why am I here? Trent did not answer immediately. Instead, he tapped a button on the table. The holoscreen flickered, then displayed the image of Earth from orbit. Mara could see the blue oceans, the green land masses, and the tiny points of city lights along the night side. The Senate has sanctioned us, Trent said finally. His voice was calm but tense. They've cut trade, restricted travel, and denied us access to the jump gates. If these sanctions hold, humanity will face severe hardships. We need a way to respond legally. Mara studied the screen. Sanctions, she repeated. I saw the vote. I knew it was coming. But legally? The Senate's vote is usually final. You want me to find a loophole? Trent's eyes were steady. Not a loophole. The truth. There is a clause, ancient and almost forgotten, in the founding charter. We believe it may give us the right to challenge the sanctions. Mara's heart quickened. She had read the old documents countless times. Few others even remembered they existed. The clause Trent referred to was written when humanity was still a new member of the galactic community, before faster-than-light travel was common, before Earth had joined any interstellar treaties. It was meant to protect young worlds from unfair treatment by powerful senators. I will need access to all procedural logs, Mara said, already thinking ahead. I need the original vote records, timestamps, speaker rotations, and any emergency communications. Trent nodded. Already compiled. Everything is on this terminal. But be warned, some of the files are restricted. Only a historian with your credentials can access them fully. Mara moved to the terminal and began reviewing the documents. Hours passed quickly. She compared the old charter with the recent vote. Her eyes traced line after line, noting which procedures were followed and which were ignored. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The vote, she said aloud. It violates the founding procedures. They ignored the requirement that all active members must be present for a sanctioned vote against a world. One delegation was absent. This is exactly the situation the clause is written to prevent. Trent leaned back in his chair. So what does that mean? It means, Mara said, her voice growing firmer, that the sanctions can be challenged. We have legal grounds. The Senate acted too quickly, relying on modern interpretations rather than the original law. If we present this properly, the sanctions may be declared invalid until reviewed by an emergency assembly. Trent's face softened. You're saying we don't have to suffer under these sanctions? Mara shook her head. We never had to. We just had to find a law that protects us. For the next several hours, Mara worked with a small team of analysts and advisors. They drafted a formal challenge, carefully citing the old charter, the procedural violations, and the requirement for an emergency assembly. Every sentence was checked, every reference double-checked. They had to be perfect. The Senate would look for any reason to dismiss their claims. Outside, the stars rotated slowly past the observation windows. Humanity's fleets were quietly moving, ensuring no one suspected the legal preparations happening in orbit. Mara felt a mix of excitement and caution. The galaxy believed Earth was weak. It was a dangerous assumption. Finally, the document was ready. Trent reviewed it once, then nodded. Send it, he said. Mara pressed the final command. The transmission left Earth's secure channels, routed through multiple relays to make sure it could not be intercepted or tampered with. Within minutes, confirmation arrived. The Senate had received the challenge. Now, Mara said quietly, we wait. And we hope they follow the law. Trent frowned. I don't expect them to be happy about this. The Senate is powerful. They are not used to being questioned, much less challenged. Mara's gaze returned to Earth below. That's why it will work. They underestimated us. They thought we would panic. They thought we would beg. But we followed the law. We stayed calm. And now we hold the only cards that matter. The next day, news began to filter through the galaxy. Analysts on other worlds noticed the unusual legal challenge. Rumors spread that Earth had found a loophole in the Senate's own procedures. Some laughed, thinking it impossible. Others were quietly concerned. If Earth succeeded, it would set a precedent no other member world could ignore. In the following hours, Mara and the Council watched the Senate's response. A message arrived. An emergency session would be convened. The first in decades. The chamber would meet to review Earth's challenge and determine whether the sanctions were valid. The announcement sent ripples through Earth's population. Citizens gathered in plazas, watching holoscreens and listening to news broadcasts. Some cheered, not understanding fully what was happening. Others were cautious, realizing this was only the first step. The galaxy was watching. The Senate was watching. And Earth was about to demonstrate that it was far more capable than anyone had believed. Mara felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. For years she had studied old texts that seemed irrelevant. Now they mattered more than ever. The knowledge she had preserved, the careful attention to detail, had given Earth a weapon stronger than fleets or firepower, a weapon the galaxy had not seen coming. Late in the evening, Mara walked to the observation deck. She looked down at the planet, lit by the soft glow of the setting sun over the oceans. Ships moved in orbit, small but organized. Humanity was ready, not with weapons yet, but with understanding, with preparation, and with the law on its side. A soft alert sounded in her terminal. She glanced at it. Another message. This time, the source was internal. Trent's office. She opened it. Prepare for the Senate hearing. Keep communication secure. They will try to intimidate. Stay calm. Follow the law. Earth depends on us. Mara allowed herself a small smile. The challenge had begun, and for the first time, the galaxy would see that humanity could face the greatest powers with intelligence, patience, and courage. She returned to her work, reviewing every possible angle, every clause, every precedent, every hidden footnote that could strengthen Earth's position. The sun rose over the horizon below, casting long shadows across the continents. From orbit, the world looked calm, unassuming, but it was ready. Somewhere, in distant systems, Senate members were meeting. Some were angry, some confused, some curious. No one expected a world so small in their eyes to stand so tall. And Mara knew that when the emergency session began, Earth would not only defend itself, it would change how the galaxy thought about humanity forever. Because the Senate had assumed fear, Earth had chosen law. And in the galaxy, law could be a weapon sharper than any blade. Hours turned into days. Mara continued her preparations, drafting documents, rehearsing arguments, and analyzing every possible response. The team around her worked tirelessly. Each person knew that their planet's survival depended not on fleets, not on weapons, but on the careful application of knowledge and law. The galaxy outside continued its normal rhythm, unaware that a single planet, underestimated and overlooked, was quietly turning the tide. And when the Senate finally convened, it would meet a world that refused to bow, a world that had discovered that being small in size did not mean being weak in influence. Mara stood once more at the observation window, watching the clouds drift over the oceans. She thought of Adrian Hale, the analyst who had first noticed the loophole. Without him, none of this would have been possible. Without careful eyes and steady minds, the law would have remained forgotten. The galaxy would have punished Earth without question. Now they waited. The stage was set. The Senate did not yet know it, but humanity had played the first move in a game no one else had seen coming. The stars outside the station shone with quiet indifference. The galaxy did not care. Yet soon, it would learn that Earth had decided to care, and that in its care, it held a power the Senate could neither ignore nor control. The challenge had begun, and Mara knew that the first word of this fight, delivered in calm and precise language, would echo across the stars for generations, because the galaxy had sanctioned Earth, and Earth, quietly, was ready to respond. Noah Reyes stepped into the Senate chamber and felt the weight of history pressing down on him. He had seen images of the place before, the vast circular platforms, the floating seats of hundreds of species, each unique in form and color. But being here in person was different. It was louder, brighter, and alive with tension. Every representative seemed to watch every other one, their eyes sharp, alert, suspicious. He had rehearsed this moment for days. Not speeches or gestures, those were simple. What mattered was patience, calm, and clarity. The galaxy believed humans were impulsive, emotional, unpredictable. Noah intended to prove them wrong. The chamber was crowded. Delegates from dozens of worlds floated in their seats, some draped in flowing robes, others with armor, some with bodies no human eye could fully comprehend. Each carried the weight of their species' pride, and at the center, presiding over the session, sat the Senate Speaker, a tall, slender figure with translucent skin and eyes that reflected light like prisms. Noah approached the central platform. His communication device translated his voice instantly into multiple languages. He began in calm tones, precise and deliberate. "Members of the Galactic Senate," he said, "Earth has received notice of sanctions imposed against it. We are here to request that the Emergency Assembly review these sanctions under the Founding Charter in accordance with procedural law." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward, curious. Others muttered complaints to their aides. Noah ignored them. His focus was on presenting the facts. He activated the display behind him. The text of the ancient clause appeared, clear and readable in every major galactic language. "This clause," Noah said, "was written when the Senate was founded. It protects any world whose survival may be threatened by sanctions, and it requires that all members be present for a vote to be valid. The recent sanctions against Earth failed to follow these requirements. One delegation was absent. Therefore, under the Charter, these sanctions are subject to review and may be considered invalid." A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. Some delegates whispered to each other. Others adjusted their floating positions, unsure how to react. The human envoy was calm, almost unflinching. Discomposure unsettled many. An older delegate from a species known for their strict adherence to hierarchy rose from his platform. His voice was sharp, commanding. "Are you suggesting," he said, "that a minor planet can challenge the authority of the Senate because one delegation was absent? That is preposterous." Noah nodded respectfully. "I am not suggesting it. I am stating the law as written in the Founding Charter. This is not a matter of opinion. It is a matter of procedure." Another delegate, smaller and covered in smooth scales, hissed quietly. "This world is clever. It hides behind rules and texts while ignoring the Senate's authority. We cannot allow this." Noah stayed calm. He had anticipated resistance. Earth does not seek to defy the Senate. Earth seeks fairness. The law is clear. The procedural error is clear. We request only that the Emergency Assembly honor the Charter and review the sanctions. Several minutes passed in tense silence. The speaker floated higher, a gesture demanding attention. The chamber quieted. "The claim will be examined," the speaker said. "All members are reminded that the Founding Charter governs these proceedings. Any attempt to obstruct or dismiss the claim without due review is a violation of the Charter itself." Noah allowed himself a small, internal sigh of relief. The first step had succeeded. The Senate could not simply ignore the challenge. But the challenge was far from over. Throughout the chamber, whispers spread. Some delegates were furious. Others were nervous. A few quietly approached aides, signaling discussions that Noah could not hear. It was clear that factions were forming. The galaxy's oldest power structures had been shaken. Noah continued presenting evidence. He showed the procedural logs, timestamps, and even the communication history during the vote. Every step demonstrated that the sanctions had been improperly enacted. An unexpected voice interrupted him. A delegate from a distant water world, tall and fluid in shape, asked a question. Why now? Why does Earth only raise this challenge after sanctions have been imposed? Noah smiled faintly. Because the law allows a world to challenge a sanction once it is applied. Earth could not act before the vote because there was no sanction. The charter is clear. Action follows occurrence, not speculation. The chamber was quiet again. The speaker adjusted the light filters around the platform, emphasizing Noah's presence. He was not threatening, he was not arrogant. He was precise. Some delegates began to realize the implications. If Earth succeeded, any world could now challenge the Senate using the original charter. This was dangerous. It threatened centuries of assumed authority. The older delegate rose again, angered. This is manipulation. The law is being twisted to serve a minor planet's interest. We cannot allow it. Noah answered firmly. The law is not being twisted. It exists. It applies. Earth has followed it exactly as written. We ask only that the Senate honor the charter and review the sanctions. That is all. The session stretched on for hours. Noah remained composed, responding to questions, clarifying details, presenting evidence. Outside observers across the galaxy could watch, some streaming the session through secure channels. Many were astonished. Humans, known for their impulsive behavior, were instead disciplined, patient, and exacting. Meanwhile, in the back of the chamber, some powerful species whispered among themselves. They were unsure how to respond. If they opposed Earth too aggressively, it would appear tyrannical. If they allowed the review, it could set a precedent that weakened their own influence. Noah's team had prepared for this. He had anticipated objections, intimidation attempts, even procedural tricks. He handled each with calm clarity, citing the charter, referring to timestamps, explaining in terms the oldest and newest members could understand. The chamber grew tense. Some delegates were becoming visibly frustrated. Others were silently impressed. One by one, the voices of opposition began to falter under the clarity of Noah's presentation. And then a disturbance. A delegate attempted to cut the session short, claiming an emergency elsewhere. Security drones hovered, and the speaker called for order. Noah paused. He allowed the interruption to play out briefly, knowing the law was on his side. If the session was prematurely closed, it would violate the very charter he relied on. The interruption ended. Noah resumed. The audience seemed to hold its breath. Every word mattered. Every gesture mattered. He spoke slowly, carefully, emphasizing one final point. Earth seeks not power. Earth seeks not revenge. Earth seeks only to follow the law, as all members agreed to do when the charter was signed. To dismiss this claim without review is to dismiss the charter itself, and that is a violation none can afford to ignore. The chamber was silent. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered to aides. Noah's calm, deliberate tone had carried far more weight than any loud protest could have. The speaker finally addressed the assembly. The claim by Earth will be considered in full. Any objection must cite specific procedural violations in accordance with the charter. This session will proceed according to ancient law, as required. All members are warned. Any attempt to obstruct the process will itself be subject to review. A quiet shock rippled through the chamber. Noah allowed himself a small smile, though outwardly he remained composed. The Senate had been forced to acknowledge the claim. They could not ignore it. Outside the chamber, observers on other worlds speculated. Earth had achieved something few thought possible. They had forced the Senate to follow the law, using nothing but logic, documents, and patience. No fleets had been mobilized. No threats had been issued. Only the careful application of knowledge. Back in the chamber, Noah concluded his presentation. He gathered his notes and returned to his seat. The delegates would now deliberate, but he had laid the foundation. The galaxy was watching. In the days following the session, the debate continued. Delegates argued, whispered, and maneuvered. Some tried to intimidate Noah's allies, but each attempt was carefully countered. The emergency assembly had been convened according to the letter of the law, and every action now had to respect that law. Noah returned to Earth's observation station for brief rest periods. He watched the planet below, cities glowing in the night. Humanity carried on, unaware of the intricate legal battle occurring above them. But the people would feel the consequences soon. The galaxy's power structures had been tested, and Earth had proven its intelligence and patience. Each day, reports came in. Some Senate members were furious, seeing humans as clever manipulators. Others were quietly impressed, realizing a species they had underestimated could act with discipline and precision. The balance of perception was shifting. Noah thought of Mara Vance, the historian who had discovered the forgotten clause. Without her, none of this would have been possible. And he thought of Adrian Hale, the analyst who had first noticed the procedural error. Humanity's advantage lay in its attention to detail and its willingness to prepare quietly, patiently, and thoroughly. The emergency session stretched into weeks. Every step was slow, deliberate, legal. The Senate's authority was tested. Members argued among themselves, questioning their own procedures. For the first time in centuries, the Assembly faced uncertainty. No one knew the galaxy had underestimated humanity. They assumed rash decisions, fear, or panic. What they did not anticipate was clarity, precision, and patience. A single world had challenged the most powerful organization in the galaxy, not with force, but with law, and the outcome would change everything. Noah returned once more to the observation deck. He looked down at the planet, peaceful, unaware, yet protected by the quiet power of knowledge. The galaxy would learn a difficult lesson, that underestimating humans was dangerous. And when the Senate finally issued its decision, the ripple effects would be felt across every system, every world, every member species. Humanity had chosen its weapon carefully, and it was sharper than any sword. Commander Lena Holt moved silently through the control room of Earth's deep space defense network. The hum of machines filled the space, a constant reminder that the world below depended on this hidden infrastructure more than anyone outside could imagine. The Senate believed Earth to be small, unprepared, and weak. They did not know that the planet had spent decades quietly building systems no one could see and no one suspected. Lena paused before the main console. Panels glowed softly, displaying the positions of every ship, relay, and station within human control. The network was vast, connected through encrypted links, invisible to any outside scanner. Earth's strength had never been in raw fleets or heavy weapons. It had been in preparation, precision, and knowledge. She pressed a series of keys. A map of the Senate's communications infrastructure appeared, dotted with points representing relay stations, data hubs, and command centers across multiple sectors. Lena studied the network carefully. With a few calculated commands, the data could be rerouted, disabled, or intercepted. Not to harm anyone, not yet. Just to demonstrate capability. Meanwhile, in the Senate chamber, debates had grown heated. Noah Reyes had finished presenting Earth's case, and the emergency session had begun deliberations. Voices rose and fell as delegates argued over procedure, precedent, and power. Some worlds were visibly angry, unable to accept that a minor planet could challenge the authority they had long assumed was unquestionable. Others were quietly concerned, realizing that if Earth succeeded, it could change the galaxy forever. Lena monitored the Senate's communications. Every message, every coordination attempt passed through channels that Earth could observe, if not control. She noticed the subtle patterns, delays, inefficiencies, miscommunications that had been part of the Senate's structure for centuries. The network, when activated, could exploit these flaws instantly. She turned to her second-in-command, Commander Rio Kim. "Prepare the demonstration," she said, "not a strike. Just proof. They need to see what they underestimated." Rio nodded. "Understood. Ready on your mark." Below, Earth continued its quiet routines. Citizens were largely unaware of the legal battle above or the hidden systems silently coming to life. Ships moved through orbit, traffic flowed, and communications hummed without interruption. To the galaxy, it appeared that Earth was still vulnerable, still small, still weak. Lena gave the command. A signal rippled outward through the encrypted network. Instantly, the Senate's central communication channels blinked. Messages were delayed, misrouted, and then restored. Delegates in the chamber began to murmur in confusion. No one could explain why their systems, so carefully managed for centuries, were faltering. The speaker attempted to restore order. "What is happening?" they demanded. "Security teams, investigate immediately." Noah Reyes, observing from the platform, remained calm. He understood the demonstration. He had coordinated with Lena's team. The goal was clear: show capability, not aggression. Show preparation, not threat. On the observation screens, delegates watched as their own communication systems seemed to betray them. Orders failed to reach their intended recipients. Security protocols triggered unnecessarily. Coordination became almost impossible. Panic began to rise, tempered by the need for decorum. Lena guided the network carefully. No one was harmed. No systems critical to life were touched. Only the Senate's own control and communications had been demonstrated as vulnerable. "This is what they do not see," Lena said quietly to Rio. "They think fleets are strength. They think weapons define power. They do not understand infrastructure. Strategy, knowledge." Meanwhile, Noah addressed the chamber again, calm and measured. "Members of the Senate," he said, "we have shown no attack, no aggression, no intent to harm. Only the facts. Systems you assumed were secure can be observed and, if necessary, controlled. That is the reality of our preparation. Earth does not seek war, but Earth is ready." Murmurs spread. Some delegates shifted uneasily. Some whispered to their aides. The demonstration had achieved exactly what it was intended to do. The Senate realized, perhaps for the first time, that Earth's power lay in precision, in planning, and in understanding systems. Not in fleets, not in weapons, but in knowledge and capability. An older delegate, one who had opposed Earth from the start, finally rose. "This is unacceptable," they shouted. "You cannot threaten the Senate in this way. We demand immediate cessation of this interference." No one nodded respectfully. "We have not threatened. We have demonstrated reality. It is your choice how you respond. Earth follows the law and respects life. Nothing more. But the Senate must understand what it underestimated." The chamber fell into tense silence. Every member considered the implications. If they dismissed Earth, they risked further exposure. If they acknowledged Earth's position, they weakened their assumed control. It was a dilemma that had not existed before. Lena monitored the systems, keeping the demonstration subtle, controlled. She allowed delegates to see vulnerability but never chaos. She allowed them to understand that Earth could disrupt, if necessary, but chose restraint. That restraint itself was a warning, stronger than any fleet or weapon could be. Hours passed. The session continued. Noah presented additional points citing legal precedents and procedural laws. Each argument reinforced the idea that Earth was not aggressive, but disciplined, patient, and precise. Outside, the galaxy began to take notice. Observers on distant worlds saw reports of confusion in the Senate, of disruptions in communications, of a minor planet standing its ground. Analysts speculated, some with admiration, some with fear. Earth's demonstration of capability had shifted perceptions. Lena allowed the network to quietly return to normal. The Senate's systems were restored. Delegates realized they had been watched, studied, and tested, and they realized that Earth had chosen restraint. Noah concluded the day with a measured statement. Earth seeks only fairness and law. "We will not exploit weakness. We will not attack. But we will prepare. We will observe. And we will act if necessary, always within the bounds of the law." Silence followed. The delegates considered the words carefully. For the first time, they understood that the human approach was different. It was neither impulsive nor weak. It was patient, disciplined, and precise. Lena stepped back from the console. "They understand now," she said quietly to Rio. "They know we are ready. They know we have the capability. And they know we will act only with law and reason." Rio nodded. "Yes, and that is more powerful than any weapon." The demonstration had achieved its goal. The Senate would proceed with caution, knowing that Earth was prepared in ways they could not fully predict. The legal challenge Noah had presented would continue, but now it was backed by undeniable capability. Earth had shown that it was not to be underestimated. As night fell on Earth below, cities glowed softly. People moved, unaware of the drama unfolding above them. And in orbit, Lena and her team maintained vigilance, ensuring that their planet remained safe. Not through aggression, but through preparation, restraint, and careful demonstration of power. The galaxy had seen a small world, underestimated and overlooked, rise to a position of strength without firing a shot. And the Senate, for the first time in centuries, realized that authority alone did not define power. Knowledge, preparation, and patience could reshape the balance of the entire galaxy. Lena looked at the stars. She knew the fight was not over. The emergency session would continue. Delegates would argue. Some might still seek to intimidate or dismiss Earth's challenge. But now, every observer knew the truth. Earth was prepared. And that preparation would guide the decisions of the galaxy for years to come. Noah joined her later, and they both watched the planet below. "They will not make the same mistake twice," Noah said. "No," Lena agreed. "They underestimated us. That will never happen again." And in the quiet hum of the control room, Earth's hidden strength remained vigilant, ready, and fully aware that the galaxy had just been shown a glimpse of its true power. The galaxy was changing, and no one noticed how fast. Delegates in the Senate were tense, their authority shaken. The emergency session continued, but for the first time in centuries, no one could act with confidence. The human challenge had forced the Senate to follow law instead of tradition. It had revealed vulnerabilities in the systems they relied on, and it had shown that Earth was more prepared than anyone had imagined. Evan Cross, a trade coordinator from a mid-sized industrial world, watched the session from his ship orbiting a distant planet. He had always worked closely with Senate logistics, coordinating trade agreements, relays, and interstellar shipping lanes. What he was seeing now troubled him more than any rebellion or conflict. The Senate had built its power on the assumption that everyone followed orders, that infrastructure was reliable, and that member worlds obeyed without question. Now, all of that was in doubt. Earth had shown that it could observe, understand, and if necessary, control those systems, not aggressively, not destructively, but in ways that demonstrated capability. Every delegate watching the human envoy realized something they had not wanted to admit. Earth was capable of far more than anyone had predicted. On Earth's observation station, Noah Reyes reviewed communications from the session. Messages were coming in from allies and observers across the galaxy, reporting on the chaos in the Senate. Some factions were angry, some confused, some quietly impressed. Noah remained calm, focusing on the facts. Humanity did not need to panic. Humanity did not need to force the issue. The law was on their side, and the demonstration of capability had made the message clear. In orbit above Earth, Lena Holt oversaw the final adjustments to the defense network. The systems had already proven themselves in the demonstration, but she maintained vigilance. The galaxy must see that Earth's preparation was precise, controlled, and disciplined. There was no threat to life, only proof of readiness. Back in the Senate chamber, arguments had grown more heated. Delegates shouted over one another, accusing others of weakness or incompetence. Some attempted to intimidate the human envoy with procedural claims, hoping to dismiss the challenge. Noah responded to each calmly, citing the charter, referencing timestamps, and explaining step by step why the challenge was valid. A group of powerful species attempted a coordinated vote to overrule the claim. They believed that authority alone would silence Earth. The vote began, but a strange phenomenon occurred. Automated systems, long assumed reliable, began to reject commands that violated the charter. Communication links failed to transmit the vote correctly. Data logs showed errors that could not be explained by hardware failure. Every attempt to bypass the law was blocked by systems programmed centuries ago, before any faction had considered their relevance. Delegates stared in disbelief. Some shouted in anger, others whispered to aides, unsure how to proceed. Noah stood calmly, letting the chamber observe the failure of authority when law was ignored. In orbit, Lena monitored the systems. She had not caused these errors. The Senate's own automated infrastructure, designed to enforce procedure and law, had triggered the corrections. Humanity had relied on the charter and historical systems. They had not interfered. The galaxy was witnessing the result of centuries of careful design. Evan Cross realized what was happening. They'd built themselves into the law, he muttered to his assistant. The Senate assumed authority. They forgot the rules, and now every attempt to break procedure is blocked automatically. Humanity is winning without striking a single blow. Back on Earth, the Strategic Council convened in a secure room. Mara Vance, Adrian Hale, Noah Reyes, Lena Holt, and Admiral Elias Trent gathered to review reports. Every message from the Senate showed the same pattern: confusion, delays, and procedural compliance that the delegates could not bypass. Adrian leaned back, watching the data streams. They think we're clever. They think we're threatening. We're not. We're just following the law. And that is enough. Mara nodded. The charter is more powerful than they realized. The Senate has relied on authority and fear for centuries. They forgot that rules, when followed, cannot be ignored. Lena added, and the demonstration showed them that we understand infrastructure. We can observe, control, and respond if necessary. But we choose not to attack. They see our restraint, and that is more dangerous than any weapon. Noah looked at the others. The next step is clear. We wait for the final decision of the emergency assembly. They cannot ignore the law. They cannot dismiss the evidence. And they cannot underestimate us again. Days passed. The galaxy watched. Debates continued in the Senate. Systems slowly began to reorganize as delegates realized that authority alone was meaningless without compliance with law. Trade coordinators like Evan Cross noticed delays, cancellations, and rerouted shipments as factions adjusted. Panic began to spread quietly, not in fear of attack, but in fear of what had been revealed. Earth's preparation and restraint had changed the rules. The emergency session finally reached a critical point. Noah presented a final summary. Calmly, logically, he outlined the procedural errors, the charter, the absent delegation, and the demonstrated capability of humanity. He emphasized one key point. Earth was not seeking power, not seeking revenge, not seeking domination. Humanity wanted fairness and law. Delegates listened in silence. The weight of centuries of assumed authority hung heavily. For the first time, they realized that rules could not be bypassed simply by tradition or threat. A small, underestimated world that forced compliance with law and principle, and the galaxy was not ready for this lesson. Outside observers documented every moment. Analysts, historians, and traders across multiple systems noted the unprecedented events. Earth had not deployed fleets. Earth had not struck a single planet, yet it had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of power, authority, and preparation. Finally, the speaker called the vote on the review of sanctions. Every delegate followed procedure, every system enforced compliance, every error in the previous vote was corrected. The result was unanimous in favor of review. The sanctions were suspended until the assembly could fully consider the case. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some delegates were angry, some relieved, some quietly impressed. No one did not celebrate. He remained calm, understanding that this was only one step in a longer process. Humanity had proven its point. Compliance with law and preparation could overcome authority. Back on Earth, the Strategic Council allowed themselves a small moment of satisfaction. Adrian smiled quietly at Mara. "We did it," he said softly. Mara shook her head, still focused. "We did not win. We demonstrated. The Assembly must still act fairly. But yes, this is a start." Lena walked to the observation deck, looking at the planet below. Ships moved in orbit. Quietly, efficiently. Systems hummed, controlled, and monitored. The world remained safe, and the galaxy had learned that humans were far more capable than anyone had assumed. Noah joined her. "They will not forget this," he said. "No," Lena replied. "They cannot. Humanity showed restraint, law, and preparation, and that is more powerful than fear, more powerful than fleets, more powerful than weapons." As night fell over Earth, the city lights glowed softly, unaware of the legal and strategic battle that had just occurred. Humanity had reshaped the galaxy without firing a shot. Every system, every trade route, every delegate in the Senate now understood a simple truth. Underestimate humanity at your own risk. And somewhere, in distant sectors, other worlds began to take notice. If a small planet like Earth could force compliance with law and demonstrate capability, what other underestimated worlds might rise? The galaxy would never be the same. In orbit, Lena, Noah, Mara, Adrian, and Admiral Trent quietly returned to monitoring operations. The fight was far from over. The emergency session would continue, debates would follow, and the final decision would still need to be enforced. But the balance of perception had shifted irreversibly. Humanity was no longer a minor power. Humanity was a force of preparation, discipline, and law. The galaxy had seen restraint, capability, and intelligence combined, and that lesson would echo across the stars for generations. The galaxy was quiet in a way that felt different. The Senate no longer functioned as it once had. Authority had fractured, and the emergency session had shown that even the oldest systems could be challenged by law and preparation. Humanity had not attacked, had not threatened, yet it had reshaped the balance of power without firing a single shot. Iris Kane, a journalist from Earth, floated in the observation room of the orbital station Cirrus. I would be so happy. She had spent months documenting the legal battle, the demonstrations, and the reactions across the galaxy. Every day had brought new surprises, new tensions, and new lessons. And now she could see the results. The Senate, once considered untouchable, had dissolved under the weight of its own failures. Member worlds no longer obeyed blindly. Regional coalitions began to form independently. Some old leaders tried to maintain control, but the systems that enforced authority had failed. Trade, communication, and diplomacy shifted from centralized power to voluntary cooperation. Iris typed quickly, recording her thoughts. Humanity had not seized control, nor had it demanded domination. Instead, it had chosen restraint, patience, and preparation. Humanity had used intelligence, law, and readiness to force the galaxy to reconsider its assumptions, and the galaxy had learned a lesson it could not ignore. On Earth, Noah Reyes met with Lena Holt, Mara Vance, Adrian Hale, and Admiral Elias Trent. The Strategic Council gathered in a secure room to review the outcomes. Reports flowed in from observers, analysts, and diplomats across countless star systems. The conclusion was clear. Humanity had succeeded in a way no one expected. Mara spoke first. The Senate is gone. Its authority has fractured. Worlds are no longer waiting for directives. They are negotiating on their own terms. Adrian leaned back watching the live feeds of interstellar trade lanes. and they are respecting the law because they saw that Earth follows it. No fleets, no attacks, just the law. And now, the law matters more than authority. Lena nodded. We demonstrated capability, restraint, and precision. The galaxy understands now that underestimating humans is a mistake. Noah added, we did not seek power. We did not seek revenge. We acted legally, carefully, and quietly. And that is why we won. Across the galaxy, new councils began forming. Worlds that had previously relied on the Senate for direction started to negotiate directly with one another. Trade resumed under new agreements. Communication channels reopened, often bypassing the old hierarchical structure entirely. Humans acted as mediators in some disputes, but never as rulers. Earth's goal had always been stability and fairness, not dominance. Iris Kane observed the interactions with fascination. Humanity's influence was not measured by fleets or weapons. It was measured by patience, intelligence, and the ability to act in ways no one else expected. Small worlds began to see that even in a galaxy of powerful species, preparation and law could protect them. Adrian and Mara worked together to draft a new framework for interstellar cooperation. Not a government, not a central authority, but a set of voluntary agreements that respected each world's autonomy while encouraging fairness and communication. It was a system the Senate could never have created because it required humility, patience, and trust, qualities the old authority had long ignored. Lena oversaw the defense networks, keeping them operational but unobtrusive. Earth had demonstrated its strength, but it would not flaunt it unnecessarily. The galaxy had learned to respect restraint as much as capability. Noah looked down at Earth from orbit. The planet was peaceful, glowing softly beneath the night sky. Humanity continued its daily lives, unaware of the vast political changes their careful actions had caused. Children played in parks, ships moved through orbit, and cities pulsed with quiet energy. All of it was protected not by fleets or bombs, but by preparation, law, and intelligence. In the weeks that followed, the new councils expanded. Worlds voluntarily joined in cooperative agreements. Trade flourished. Research collaborations resumed. Conflicts that might have erupted under the Senate's centralized authority were now managed locally, mediated by human diplomats when necessary. The galaxy had shifted from fear-driven obedience to respect-driven collaboration. Iris Kane wrote her final report, her words capturing the unprecedented events. Humanity has shown that true power is not measured by fleets, weapons, or domination. It is measured by preparation, intelligence, and the courage to act legally and ethically. The galaxy has been reshaped by a world it once underestimated. The lesson is clear. Underestimate humanity at your own peril. The Strategic Council allowed themselves a rare moment of reflection. For months, they had worked quietly, preparing for challenges the galaxy could not foresee. Now the results were clear. Humanity's patience, lawfulness, and precision had reshaped civilization without bloodshed. Lena spoke softly, looking at the team. We could have attacked. We could have forced compliance. But we didn't. That restraint made the difference. They respect us now, not because of fear, but because they see what we are capable of when we choose law over force, Mara added, and the law protected us. Every step we took was legal, procedural, and precise. The galaxy has learned that even the strongest cannot ignore it. Noah smiled faintly. We won not through war, but through understanding, patience, and preparation. That is humanity's strength, and it will continue to guide us. The galaxy settled into a new pattern. Systems that had once relied on centralized authority learned self-governance. Humans served as mediators, diplomats, and advisors, never rulers. Trade resumed. Alliances formed voluntarily. And everywhere, the story of Earth's restraint and preparation spread, a warning and a lesson to every world. Iris Kane concluded her report with a single sentence. Humanity's greatest victory was showing that intelligence, preparation, and law can reshape a galaxy without firing a single shot. The sun rose over Earth, cities glimmered in soft light, ships moved through orbit. Humanity carried on, unaware of the history they had created. The galaxy had been changed forever, not by conquest or force, but by patience, law, and the quiet power of a species determined to prove that it could not be underestimated. The Strategic Council gathered one last time in orbit, watching the planet below. They had acted carefully, thoughtfully, and decisively. They had shown the galaxy what humanity could achieve when it relied on preparation, law, and intelligence, rather than fear or aggression. And as they looked to the stars, they knew one truth above all. Earth would never be underestimated again. The galaxy had been forced to recognize a simple fact. Humanity, Small in numbers but vast in preparation, knowledge, and patience, was a force unlike any other, and the lesson would endure across generations. Because the Senate had tried to sanction Earth, and Earth had reshaped the galaxy without firing a single shot.